Okay, so I just wanted to say hello from Illinois and wanted to share with you an observation that Cosette made for the #1 reason to visit Illinois. And that reason is this. She saw when you're signing the guest register, because if you stop at a rest area, if you stop at one of the public rest areas, you should sign the register, because apparently that's how they prove that people actually show up and they get money to keep, having them. But the reason to visit Illinois, the #1 checkbox, the first one there was death. So there you go, bringing people to Illinois since time immemorial. It's the Grim Reaper. All right, here we are in front of the J. Houston Tavern and Restaurant, and I brought you here because I want to show you a fascinating example of how the town of Arrow Rock would defend itself in case of attack. If you'll notice here that the gutters are extremely treacherous, and every time that I step across these, I just about break my ankle. So you can imagine what invading troops would run into. This is, of course, a small drawbridge, where if you were to pull this plank, this large walkway up, then of course your ankles would be suspect to getting turned and broken and whatnot. And then the people would rush out of the tavern and stab you with forks and finish you off. It was only until they would not stab you with sporks, because those were not invented until 1911, and by that point they were wondering why they still had these gutters like this. Alright folks, so we're here looking at a fabulous bell that was cast by C.W. Coffin. It was done in 1855 and was used by Captain John Burris on his Missouri River boats. And the reason I bring this up is because it's a fascinating example of how resources were so, you didn't have the abundance that we have these days, I think is the best way of putting it. Because even something as simple as a bell, you'll notice that they say Missouri River boats. They only had one bell among all the boats, and if you can imagine having to swap this out from boat to boat when you needed to ring something. I mean, you would be on the river and you would say, "Oh, we need to ring the bell." You would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, the bell is on the third boat down because they needed it to ring for this other thing." And they would say, "Oh, well, I guess we can't ring the bell." So that just shows, in the 1850s, you just had to make do with what you have. There were a lot of hoarse throats from yelling when they had no bells. So Arrow Rock, currently a population of 79 people. Originally, it had a population of more than 40,000. Now, what they'll tell you here officially is that this was due to the fact that the Missouri River, this used to be a river town, but the Missouri River is now a mile away from the town, and thus the town's population eventually went away. But the real secret that they don't want you to know is that the true reason for the exodus was thunderbirds. I'm sitting in front of the Arrow Rock Federated Church, built in 1849. And I'm here to illustrate exactly what caused the depletion of the population here in Arrow Rock. As I said, thunderbirds. Now, as you can see, these are some front steps. But you might ask yourself the question, where did the house go? The answer, it was carried away by a giant bird of prey with the entire family inside. Faced with such a threat of such enormous birds, the population of Arrow Rock dwindled down to the current 79. It was not until 1930 that they actually had wiped out the thunderbird population in the area, but yet the town has sadly never recovered. It still hasn't recovered. I'm standing in front of the Arrow Rock jailhouse. Now, as you can tell, this is not a large structure. If you were to come up closer and take a look inside, you'd see there was probably only room for one person at a time, and indeed, that's all they needed, because they've only ever incarcerated one person in here. This was built in 1873, and it replaced the log version that they had had before. Now, the story goes that the one person that they had incarcerated made so much noise, hollering is the technical term, that they finally had to let him go because he was keeping the neighbors awake, much like that motorcycle. In fact, pan over and show where the closest neighbors are. So that guy was hollering pretty darn loud. So finally they let him go. Of course, the joke was on them because he turned out to be a werewolf. So we're here in Marshall, Missouri, and we've come here because we wanted to meet one of the state's most prominent figures of history. He's been featured everywhere, really. Ripley's Believe It or Not, Animal Planet, and he's a very important character in Missouri. And so that's what we're here to see. We're at his memorial garden right now. So let's go see it. That's right, Jim the Wonder Dog. What's so wonderful about Jim? Well, I'll tell you. In 1927, there was an event known as the Oregon Cat Rush. That's right. Dogs who had gone out to Oregon were riding back to everywhere in the country, not just Missouri, to say that cats were so plentiful, you didn't even have to really try to chase them. They were just teeming in the streets. They said, one letter said, I could just sit in front of the saloon and swat in the air, and by the time my paw had gone across there, blam, I'd hit a cat. So dogs, Missouri was depleted of dogs in 1927. They had all moved west for easy cat pickings. However, one dog was more loyal to humans than he was to his desire to torture felines, and that was Jim. In fact, Jim not only stayed and was the only male dog left in the entire state of Missouri, but he helped, over the course of his life, repopulate the dog population here in the state. People would bring their bitches from miles around to meet Jim, and Jim would take care of them. So, if you own a dog in the state of Missouri today, there is a almost 98% chance that there's a little bit of Jim in your pooch at home. Well done, Jim.